Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Jack the Lad podcast. On today's episode we've got Robbie Dinsdale back for part 2. In the last episode we spoke about the start of his journey through his triathlons, the crash that he had at the Outlaw Triathlon, and then we did start to touch on his tour of Scotland by bike when we finished. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I suggest you go back and listen to that. And yeah, we're going to get back into it now. So welcome back, Robbie.
Cheers for having me back again.
No, it's all right. I mean, it doesn't feel like a week.
No, it definitely doesn't. I'm still wearing the same clothes, and yeah.
So yeah, in the break, Robbie did say, "Oh, do you want me to change my top?" I was like, "No, I'm sure people will know that it was all recorded at once." So yeah, so obviously, like I said in the intro, there we obviously touched on your cycle around Scotland.
Yeah.
And Orkney, and your sort of detour to Twat, 2 T's.
Yeah.
And so how did that come about? Like why there? I know you've obviously, you said off air, obviously you've got quite an attachment to Scotland, and you like the sort of, obviously the outdoors and stuff, and obviously triathlete, so you enjoy a challenge. But what was the starting point of that? Was there a conversation with someone, or? Yeah,
so it was the North Coast 500, speaking, because my wife is from Inverness, so the father-in-law was interested in doing that at times, and it's something I wanted to do. And as I said before, like in the last episode, that I wanted to do the North Coast 500, but time just didn't allow for it. And also, I wanted to spend some of my 2 weeks off with my daughter and the wife. So it was, it made sense to just cut it down to the 5 days rather than end up being 10 days or whatever it was, a week, 10 days. But I still needed to do something. I was because I spent 5 years up at Lossiemouth when I first joined up. Because I've done 13 years now. And yeah, my first 5 years were up at Lossiemouth. That's where I met my wife. Then went down to Wittering, and the first thing I noticed when I went onto the Reds, first thing I noticed when I got onto there is how much I missed the great outdoors. Admittedly, though, I was back near Nottingham, which is where I'm from, so being Lincoln, it was nice to be near home for a bit, but I got a little bit itchy with it. After being at Wittering for 2.5 years with yourself, I then went back up to Lossiemouth for a year before I got my offer for commission, and then got onto the course that I'm on right now. And again, I found myself just itching, missing the outdoors, missing just the ability to go, I'm going to get my tent in my bag, a load of gear, walk out to here, I'm going to set my tent up, and no one's going to actually have a problem because it's legal up there to, you got the right to roam, you can camp anywhere and everything like that, obviously. Because when I did the cycle, I opted to have just a tarp. And literally had the bike set up as the frame for it. So I took the front wheel off, set it on the ground, had the tarp over the top of it, pinned it all out. It was tight. I don't know how well it would have been if I had an actual storm during the night, but it did rain one of the nights and it held up. I was dry, which is good. But yeah, it just worked out. And then, like, as I was planning it, I found a pub, as I said in the last episode, the Crask Inn. And they don't sponsor me. I just liked it because I've mentioned it a few times now. And yeah, it was a really nice, end of the first day, get to go to the pub. I wasn't planning to stay there on the last night, but it ended up just working out as like, if I do a big day, do the 100 miles back from John O'Groats to the Crask Inn, yeah, it's a big day, but then I've got a pub at the end of it, and I've got a hot meal. I don't have to just have a pot noodle or whatever out of my jet boil. So yeah, the whole trip it was also a bit of exploration for me, because growing up, when I first was up at Lossie, as much as I loved the outdoors, I wouldn't necessarily go out without someone else kind of taking me. I never felt like I could go out by myself. And then at some point it just clicked. It was towards the end of my 5 years up there that it just clicked. It's like, I am capable to go up Munro by myself, or just take the dog. It's, when I did enough stuff with other people up there that I was able to navigate myself around. And as long as I wasn't doing anything stupid, which generally speaking I won't, then yeah, there's no reason why I can't. And I think that's what it is. A lot of these things have been me exploring that actually I can do these things. I can do them by myself. And, but yeah, that trip was just a bit of a, yeah, I can do this. Admittedly, next time I'm getting a tent, I cannot be bothered with the tarp. It was a pain in the bum.
Yeah.
But it was nice though on the second night on Orkney. Got off the ferry, cycled about 30 minutes up to a beach that had a convenient. The beach had its own toilet and stuff there, so it was ideal. Just went into the dunes, and it wasn't the perfect sunset that I was hoping to get. Instagram sort of sunset that I was going to sit there with a beer, but I still sat there with a beer with the ocean just going. It was a nice big bay, and in the morning it was like it's just silent, and it was perfect. And that's exactly why I went out to do that.
Yeah, no, obviously I've seen on your Instagram, and I follow it, and I check in with especially when you were doing that, I checked in every day to thinking I think I liked every story that you had and whatnot. It's like that part of it. I've always known you to be, not to sort of, when you said about not being an idiot or like playing the fool and stuff. Yeah. You seem like quite a sensible bloke. You've always been sensible when I've known you. Do you know what I mean? It was probably more me being sort of a dickhead.
Screaming at FIFA down the office.
Yeah,
and stuff. You got emotional with that.
But it's like, I think from that person that you knew then, I feel like I've changed a hell of a lot since leaving the military. I'm so much more accepting of people. I'll speak to anyone. And yeah, I think I am a lot kinder now. I think I was probably very harsh and a bit of an arsehole, to be honest. And people will say that, and people will think that, and that's fine. And I would, if I ever hurt anyone growing up or anything like that, if they want to reach out and let me know, I'll be happy to apologise to them, because I think has been certain instances where I've been, quite a twat, to be honest. To quote, Orkney at you. Yeah. So you've touched on it there about obviously your Instagram, and whatnot. How often were you stopping during that cycle to take photos and all that? Or were you taking them while you were riding, or?
Yeah, mixture. Mostly taken while I was riding. Originally, I had a GoPro. That was the plan. I was going to take a few videos, and then in the evening I'd do it. Got to the Forth Road Bridge. Not Forth Road Bridge, sorry, that's Edinburgh. Keswick Bridge, going over I got it out, take a video, press the button, no SD card. Because the day before I'd been in the canoe and wild swimming with my daughter while she was in the canoe, and then obviously I had to upload on my laptop and left it in the laptop. So I just basically had a useless camera. So yeah, I used my phone, which was not quite as easy to use because it's just a bit big. But yeah, I managed. But then also that meant I was uploading things straight away on the fly, and for the most part I try not to, well, generally speaking I'll use my phone while cycling to take photos, but I won't be editing because I'm still an anxious person as a result of that crash, and also just don't like the idea of someone ruining my day by shouting at me for, rightfully so, for being on my phone while cycling. It's not a clever thing to do, but I mean, most of the time I was in the middle of nowhere that I hadn't seen someone for like a good hour. It was great. Yeah. And then someone would turn up, and there's one incident where the car came up behind me, and there was a passing place literally 10 feet ahead. So I started speeding up to get into the passing place, and they just decided, no, I'm just going to go now. And literally I had about half a metre between me and them, but it was getting narrower. And by the time they'd passed me, it was about 10 centimetres. Like I can literally see into your passenger seat right now. This is just a bit stupid. But yeah, for the majority of it, people were absolutely fine. For drivers, I didn't actually have any real issues for the majority of the ride.
Yeah. Was there any? Did you sort of speak to any locals and stuff while you're about, and any of them say like, what are you doing with all this gear on a bike? What are you up to? Or
I think because obviously being like the North Coast 500, no one ever was like, oh yeah, why have you got all that kit? It is normal, but definitely got speaking to quite a few locals at the pub on the first night. Yeah, chat to the owners quite a bit, and when I was in Kirkwell on Orkney, that went to a cafe there, and that was I just ended up chatting to a few of the locals, kept my distance because I hadn't had a shower for about 3 days at that point, and I knew I wasn't exactly smelling nice, but yeah, I still managed to get chatting to them, and it was nice to like just speak to some locals, and they even, because there was a country show that was going on. I did think about going to it, but then time didn't work out for it to be worthwhile for me to go, because I was going from one end of Orkney all the way to the other,
right,
the full length of it, to get onto the ferry back down to John O'Groats. Because then I was going to start cycling back to Thurso from John O'Groats, but I got off the ferry and I was like, I'm absolutely shattered. My eye was getting all funny because I had contacts in, and I think one of my contacts had a bit of sand in it. So it was like, I can't go anywhere. I spoke to I had a quick look on the website for the campsite. I was like, it's 12 quid and I can have a shower. So it was like, yeah, I'm going to stay here for the night. And it was the best thing I did. Though that night I ended up going to the cafe there. And also I mentioned in the other episode that I'm vegetarian. Went to the restaurant, and I didn't have my glasses on. I was shattered. And then all I had was a £10 note on me because it turned out all their card machines were down. So I said to them, look, what can I get for a tenner? And she's like, oh, don't worry, we'll sort it out. We know you've got a tenner. Just pick what you want and we'll tell you what you can't have because we'll put discounts on. I was like, well, I'm not too hungry. I've just had a pot noodle, which that's why I was in there, because I didn't even touch the size. And she's like, oh, well, there's a kid's fish and chips, but it's actually quite a large plate. So, yeah, okay, I'll have that. Sat down. And I actually said to him, I'm a vegetarian. I had to walk up to the counter and was like, I've just ordered fish and chips from you. I'm a vegetarian. I can't have it. They were in hysterics. And I ended up getting a bloody halloumi burger and coffee from them for a tenner, and which should have been like 20 quid. But I made their night. They said, yeah, you've made my night.
That no
was
doubt.
Yeah, very, very tired me.
yeah, it sounds it. The with the bike situation, like when you're at the pub and that, where are you leaving the bike?
So at that point, it was set up for with the tarp. So the tarp was over it. I'd used the wheel, the wheel that was loose to prop up the back end of the tarp, and so someone could have nicked it, but they also didn't know if someone was underneath
inside
it.
There,
So and I could see the entrance to the campsite from where I was, though I didn't have my glasses on, so it would have been useless. There was an element of trust when it came to that, but I also just had no choice. I did have a small hip lock thing, which they're just like a zip tie, metal zip tie, which they're great for when you're at a cafe. No good for actually securing your bike because a pair of snippers would open them.
Yeah, and they're away.
Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I think in the previous episode actually, about your time at the Red Arrows.
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was hard work, but fantastic. So I did 3.5 years. It was my first posting after Lossiemouth. I was actually on detachment at Marham doing probably the worst job I've ever done, a 100% stock take. Then that was the point where I was like, I need to get out of being a supply. It's a supply, I will say, is a great job for learning a lot of life skills, getting a lot of qualifications out of, and I wouldn't put anyone off from doing it. But for me, it wasn't the right challenge for me. I wouldn't say it's not challenging enough. It's definitely challenging in some ways. It just wasn't the right challenge for me.
It's definitely challenging with some of the people they employ.
There is that, yeah. But yeah, no comment with that one.
Well, we were talking about it off air, weren't we?
Yeah. But I was at Marham and I'd just put in for the job at Wittering at FST because I was like, I'm ready for a move now. I've been here for 5 years at Lossie. Got an email back. It's like, yeah, you can have that one, but also you're at the top of the list for Lincolnshire. And we've had long story short, the previous occupant was very quickly out of the Air Force for personal reasons. So they needed someone quite urgently. It was like, you've got, can you be posted here within a month? Normally you get three months, you get 90 days, but it was like, yeah, I'll wait. For the Red Hours, I'll waive it happily. Me and the missus had not long moved in, like 6 months ago before. So all of a sudden we're having to move everything out. She moved back in with her mum and dad in Inverness, and I moved into the block for a year. whilst I was first on the Reds. And probably the best thing I did, because it was a very busy year. In my first 2 months in, I ended up going to Malta because the other person had a lapse with one of his qualifications. So it was like, it is dangerous goods one. So it's like I ended up going to Malta on a Near East tour. Then went to Jersey in my first year as well. That was fantastic. Like that was the end of season sort of, where like for the pilots, they meet the next pilots that are coming out that are going to be joining, and the families. And for us, it's just there's the whole weekend's quite popular because it's because of the air shows and stuff. And yeah, I saw quite a bit of the country as well. Went to Exeter, Wales, and stuff like that, supporting the road crew. And I mean, the general day-to-day job was, it was sometimes hard work because the aircraft is 50 years old. So spares are there, but they're not always easy to get hold of, which is pretty much our job. And the rest of the Hawk Force is all civilian. So there's a difference in work ethic, and I don't mean that in they don't work hard, we do. I mean, it's just a general, like, someone who's in the military will understand what I mean by that. That there is you will as well. There's a different work ethic between civvy and military when we're working together. But yeah, there was frustrations. But the highlight of my time there, so I went to Greece 3 times with them in a place called Al-Qaeda. It was lovely. It's just nice. It's just nice that we went there at the very start, just before summer. So it was a bit cool when we got there, and then it got up to like your mid-30s sort of thing, just as we were about to come back. And that was for the Red Arrows training, exercise Spring Hawk. Again, work hard, but also there was the social was amazing as well. There was a lot of social events going on whilst we were there and stuff. But then, yeah, as I said, absolute highlight would be the Far East tour. So I had just done 6 months in the Falklands. Came back. I was meant to have about a month off R&R from the 6 months. Got a phone call from corporate. It was like, look, I appreciate you've been away for 6 months, but can you come back? Well, we'd like you to come on the Far East tour. We need the extra bod, and you've got a lot of quals that we need. And we are also, can you like cut your R&R by 2 weeks? So it was like, basically at the end of that year, come April, I carried over I think 35 days leave. So I had 60 days leave to take in 2017. So yeah, that was a chunk. Yeah, that took a bit to get rid of. But yeah, the Far East tour though, we started in Italy, went to India, Singapore, Malaysia, I didn't go. My team went to, where was it next? Thailand, then into China. And it was the first time the Red Arrows had ever been to China. They absolutely loved us there. It was an interesting place, I will say that. I've never had someone stand in front of me in a queue, get their phone out, put it on selfie mode and try and take a picture of me as I'm looking at them through the screen going, what are you doing? And they're still just doing it. I'm like, okay, fine. I had one person who...
when you say they're taking that selfie...
We're in a queue, kind of thing, just for Burger King or whatever.
Yeah, but as in, they're taking that because it's like, this is the first white man I've seen?
Potentially, yeah. So we're in Zhuhai, and from what I understood, there was, and also from my observation, there wasn't that many Westerners there.
Right.
We weren't far from Hong Kong, though. So we did go to an expat bar, and I did chat to a few of the Brits and Americans there, and they did say, yeah, there's not many Westerners here, so we are quite unique. But the weirdest part was me and one of the other guys were wandering across the air show to get some food, because where we were stationed was complete opposite end. We just stopped and I would look at one of the aircraft, as you do, and one of the locals came up to us and I was like, oh, can I get a photo with you? Because I was in my blue suit and he was in MTP camo. And like, yeah, sure. And then all of a sudden, before we know it, everyone's getting their confidence and like queuing up. Like, oh God, what's happening here? One of the people, you
should have charged them money.
I should have, but yeah, but one of the guys, he was really keen, but it just seemed like a nice guy. But yeah, it was maybe a bit odd, but not judging sort of thing. But about a month after I got back, so on our blue suits we have our names monogrammed on it, and he got back, and what he had done is he'd zoomed in on the picture and then found me on Facebook and was like, I need to change some of that, because he messaged me and was like, "Hi there, I met you at the air show. I was wondering if we could be friends." Delete.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, purely innocent. I know, I've no doubt purely innocent, but it's a bit, yeah, okay. But China was interesting place for it, definitely. I enjoyed it, absolutely enjoyed it, and like we had a better time. The best place for food that we found was these street vendors, because you'd go to we ended up sitting there, having a few drinks next to the road, and you just go up to it was just simple things like noodles, eggs, cabbage, and whatever meat that you wanted if you want. And for me, it was really, I just ended up having noodles, eggs, and cabbage, have a few drinks, and then I was like, I'm hungry again, so I just ended up, I had so many noodles, it was ridiculous, but it was the best food I'd had during it. And then after China, we went back to Thailand. So the first time we went into Thailand, we were in Suratani, which is in the south. The way back into Bangkok, then from Bangkok over to Hyderabad in India. Might have butchered the pronunciation there, and then into Mumbai for a few days before then going back to Oman, and then to United Arab Emirates. Managed to go to the F1 whilst we were at Minad, and I mean I only went to the practice day, but that was still great. A few guys managed to actually go to the actual race day and stuff, but by that point I'd already flown out of the country and was at the next part. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. 2 months away. I mean, the missus was jealous, and as you can imagine, because and also frustrated because I'd spent 6 months away and then another 2 months away, then came home just in time for Christmas. But once in a lifetime kind of thing. And it was like, this is the thing, like I have had a very fortunate career. I've landed, I went up to Lossiemouth, went straight into fuels, where we were doing quality assurance checks on the helicopter landing sites across Scotland for search and rescue. Yeah. So I saw all of Scotland, went to R&D, which is it's an interesting job, receipts and dispatch for what it is. You have to use your head a little bit. You have to think, problem solve a bit. Then the Red Arrows, then went to Wittering, where again we worked in fuels, and I managed to get quite involved with what you were doing, which is building fuel sites. Yeah. And that's what I really wanted, because so when I went to join up, when I first went to the AFCO, what I wanted to do was something like AMM, aircraft maintenance mechanic, or work in GF, or I wanted to do something technical. Yeah. But basically went from medical, because everything came through. I had the grades. I mean, I didn't have any amazing grades. I only had C's and stuff, but it was enough to get through. Yeah. C's and 1B. But it's like, went for the medical after the aptitude.
Make sure you get the B in there.
Oh yeah. it was in geography, so it doesn't really count, but I'm going to drop it off anyway. And went to the medical, and you're colourblind. So great, cool. What can I do? At that point, because it changes all the time, so at the point it was chef, supplier, or driver or adminer. Well, supply sounded the better of the bunch, and it definitely was in hindsight. No disrespect to the other trades, but for what I wanted, it was a bit more, because it was a bit more hands-on. Yeah. But yeah, it was actually whilst I was on the Reds, I started a degree with the Open Uni in engineering, because again I want to see what I can do now. I tried starting the SILT degree that the supply give you, the logistics degree, but it wasn't for the way that it was given to me. It wasn't very well organised, and that might have been the tutor, I don't know, but it just didn't work for me. But then the OU, I mean, the Open Uni is fantastic in my opinion, for the way they teach everything. And I basically started doing that, and that started building my confidence in that actually I can do more. There is more that I can do, and when I did, put me in the perfect position, because 2 years ago, they actually opened up the basic entry scheme, which is a foundation degree scheme that they allow Originally it was only technical trades that could go for it to become an engineering officer, and that can go either aeronautical or communication electronics. I had my aim always was go communication electronics because they removed the requirement to be CP2, which is basically not colorblind. So I could do that. And yeah, basically, from doing my Open Uni studies, I had all the prerequisites to do the foundation degree. Frustratingly, I already had a foundation degree with the Open Uni. I had the equivalent, but because I wasn't from a technical trade, they were like, no, you need to do the BES. But I went to OASC, which is the Officer Aircrew Selection Centre at Cranwell, did all the stuff there, and somehow managed to get through it, like, pretty decently. I had a half-decent write-up, and then pretty much, I got my letter through that, you've been selected for the BES. And this is whilst I was at Lossy, so I'd just been at Lossy for a year, and then having to tell, and we had our daughter, Kayla and I, we had her in 2020, middle of COVID. We'd only been back up at Lossy near her family for barely 6 months. Where I was telling them, I'm going to be moving again down to Gosford now, near Birmingham. It wasn't great, but also they knew that it was going to mean a better quality of life for Aria, daughter. So it was like, and it will be, not only the pay increase, you have a little bit more, from what I can see as an officer, you have more control over your career.
Yeah, 100%.
And you move every 18 months to 2 years. But again, you almost can choose. You're still going to be told at the end of the day, you're in the military, you will always be told where you're going, but you have a little bit more sway in saying, if I do this for you, like go to Falklands for 6 months, then you can put me in this slot, something like that. It does work like that. But
it's with anything. It's the same, in business. The higher you get up, the more sort of leeway you do get to do certain things. And I've been left the military now for 4.5 years now, and I have almost jumped into a new job yearly, or it's worked out yearly. It's 4 or 5 jobs I've had, but they have sort of differed in length. But yeah, and in all of them, you can see the sort of differences. And I was in at sort of middle management level, and sort of the stuff I could get away with was, if I had to, dip out because I've got to get my boy from school or whatever. I at one of my last jobs, I was the, head honcho on site. I had like 70, 80 people under me, and everything came through me. So I'd just say to one of my assistant managers, I've just got to nip out and pick the boy up from school. Yeah. But if one of my lads, and it is very sort of, I would probably have allowed it, if it's like last minute and I need to go and get my kid from school. My missus can't get away from work, whatever she's doing. Oh yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I would do it fairly regularly. Yeah. And it was just, it's 3 o'clock, Jack's going to get his kid. But because I worked 80-hour weeks, if anyone ever rang me on weekends, I was off, but from, through most of the weekend, pretty much, I was logging sort of 70, 80-hour weeks. Yeah. I only get paid for 40. So me doing, nipping out for half an hour to pick up my boy and then drop him off, to my now ex, to his mum, shall we say. It was then, it's all, peaks and, it's all, you work for them, they work for you. But yeah, like you say, with it being officer, I do think there is sort of a,
generally
the good old boys.
You'll remember it from the military as well, is that there are, I'd say you get away with a lot. You're given a lot of allowance with, so you can get away for the gym during work's time. Like if you have the right kind of office environment, or you are able to clear your work early enough, you could essentially go to the gym at 4 o'clock every day. Despite us working till 5. Though, admittedly, as well, it's always big boy rules as well. You will accept that sometimes you'll be told no, you can't because we've got this fuel receipt in. Whatever. And you're fine with that. But generally speaking, because we're expected to be fit, so it's always better to be like, if you go and during work is going to help get you fitter, then we'll do that, as long as it doesn't affect anyone else, so as it doesn't disadvantage everyone else. And you'll never get that as far as I say, you don't get that in Civvy Street very much. I don't think many officers will allow their employees to go off to, companies will allow their employees to go off to the gym whilst being paid. Some of them might, like as a perk, but I doubt. Fully paid. No.
Not that I've ever experienced or known about from anyone that I know.
I know with some of these tech companies, like one mate's back home, he works for one that literally has got like a beer fridge in it and all the ping pong table and stuff like that. That Google-esque sort of thing. And he does have them sort of perks, but then he's also works from home all the time, and he's basically left to his own devices. But that's that kind of environment, I guess, and the job.
Yeah, and I mean that will be like with the tech side of it. You don't have to be in work to achieve the goal, because if it's a tech company, obviously they're on the laptops and Zoom calls and all the rest of it like that. So obviously with this day and age, it is a lot easier, and I think that the lockdown sort of proved that for a lot of people, because there is a lot of sort of empty office space now, or there's not such an onus on you have to be in work at this time. It's as long as we can hit these targets, then we're all good.
Yeah.
While you were talking about your time at the Red Arrows, you skipped through a fair few countries there over them 2 months. What was your best country out of them countries
Singapore.
Singapore?
Straight away.
And why?
I mean, one of the perks was because there was a typhoon going through the Indian Ocean. The jets never made it to Singapore, so we had about a week or so just waiting for the jets. So there was a lot of they're going to arrive today, so we're all getting ready in uniform, and then no, they're not. And there wasn't much. The equipment pack up wasn't going to arrive at the airport that the Reds were coming to. It was only going to get sent there if something happened. If one of the jets broke en route or something, which it does happen, but it's not that likely at that point. So basically, I was there just if things went wrong, they then had their logistics liaison to do what I was meant to do. So as a result, the photographers were that were on the Reds were actually asking, well, look, you liked playing with cameras anyway, so we're going to give you a camera, set you up on one of the skyscrapers, which had like a restaurant on top with the PR guys, and when the jets fly through Singapore, you go take photos. So that was one thing I was gutted about, that the jets never turned up, because that would have been amazing. But at the same time, it's a very expensive country. Oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Drinks are and stuff like it. A bottle of beer was, I think, the equivalent of £8 in one place. That was at the early hours of the morning, admittedly, but but yeah, fantastic country. I absolutely loved it. I've been trying to get the missus to. Well, she'll happily go. She wants to go to Australia, and we'll do it on the way to Australia. It's just finding the money and time to actually go over there. Especially with me doing stupid things like triathlons, because they're expensive. They do rack up.
So, looking back over your career in the military and life in general, what's some advice that you would give to someone that's either thinking about joining the military, or they're a bit sort of lost at school and they don't know what they're going to do in the future? What would you say to someone like that?
I mean, absolutely do it. Yeah, be prepared for what the military is going to do. The fact that you will be moved around. So if you are someone that cannot leave, I don't mean someone who can't imagine themselves leaving their hometown. I mean someone who has tried and just doesn't work. It causes whatever issues, then that's where you might need to worry. But if you're someone who's like, I can't imagine ever living away from home, well, do it, because it will throw you in the deep end. That's what I did when I joined up and I went through Halton for supply training. I drew a circle around the UK, essentially with my preferences. Lossiemouth being one of them. I put one down at Odium, and then Wittering, I think, was another one. And it was like, basically, because I drew a circle around the UK, I got Lossiemouth, because at that point, a lot of people were put off it because of how far north it was, and Lucas was still open, so people would rather Lucas, which is near Edinburgh. And I loved it. But I was thrown in the deep end. I was on a flight from Manchester up to Inverness Airport, picked up by an MT driver who I ended up then getting chatting to, and I had a few drinks with her on the odd occasion when we were all out as groups. So I did get to know, that was the first person I got to know kind of thing from Lossiemouth. And it was great. It taught me a lot. it brought me out of my shell a lot, because when I got to Lossie, I was a very shy person. I was, I still kind of have my tendencies, but for the most part, I am able to waffle on as I am now. That's pretty much what I end up doing, just waffling. And going to Lossie for those 5 years was fantastic. Now I am, admittedly, so I met my now wife there within her first year. So I had a family up there essentially that I could go visit. So I got off camp at the weekends, most weekends, driving through to Inverness, and that can make a difference, because otherwise, if you're stuck on camp, bearing in mind that's where you work. Because when my first year on the Reds, I lived on camp, and I noticed a huge difference when I moved in with Kayla, where it was like all of a sudden, I actually, I'm leaving camp, and it was driving out those gates. It's little things like that you don't realise that you need. But the social up at Lossiemouth, that's the one thing as well. The social up at Lossiemouth is great, and there's few camps left that are like it, because everyone drives home at the weekends now. Yeah. So people more do things on a Thursday, or even then it's people are starting to hit the gym more rather than going out drinking, which is a good thing, to be honest. It's not a bad thing at all, and they're doing sports now, and that's where they're getting their social aspects. So it's great. But yeah, back to the question there. Like, I would definitely say just go for it, because you will see a different end of the world. Like, if you do manage to get on a job where you get to go to places, you will see places through a lens that you wouldn't see if you went there as a civvy. That's one thing that I do want to go to, the places that I went to with the Reds, just with the wife and myself, especially Thailand. So then I'm not with a big group of people. I'm with just the wife, and we've got a little bit more freedom to go around. We're not stuck where we need to be just in case we're needed, kind of thing. So you do see things through different ways. But I mean, at the same time, when we're in Singapore and India, we ended up going to the British consulates there. In India, New Delhi, it was a garden party, and because the jets hadn't turned up, they were stuck in the region where Gandhi was born, meaning that they couldn't drink themselves, which was a bit rubbish for them. Stuck there for about 3 or 4 days. They just ended up taking one of the teams, which was my team, just to basically be there in the place of them, because one of the big things with this garden party was, here's the Red Arrow sort of thing. There was people from all over the country there, and it was fantastic, really. Yeah, again, experiences that you're not going to get outside, unless if you work somewhere high in government, or you're in a company that's tied in with the council or whatever, So yeah, there's all sorts of things that you end up doing.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant, Robbie. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
It's all right.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, I've learnt a lot about backstory on triathlons and your Red Arrows time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, cheers.
See you later.
The greatest.